This video was requested by a patron. Patrons in the top tier get early access to videos and the ability to skip the line and request future video topics for me to cover. See how you can become a patron by clicking the card in the upper right corner or the link in the description below. And now, on with our feature presentation. Andy Reid is one of the greatest coaches in the history of the NFL, and I think that goes without saying. When he retires and walks away from the game, he's got a one-way ticket to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. As of this video, he's made it to the conference championship game 10 times. He's won 247 games, which is the 5th most in NFL history. And barring anything absolutely insane, he'll be in 4th place by the end of the 2023 season, seeing as Tom Landry is in 4th right now with 250 wins. He's made it to 4 Super Bowls, he's won 2, and he's 2nd all-time in playoff wins, only behind Bill Belichick. Reid's been doing this since 1999, and is loved in both Philadelphia and Kansas City, and for good reason. However, even though people take Reid seriously now, and view him as one of the greatest to ever do it, establishing that credibility at first can be awfully tough. When you're a first-time head coach, and you're just starting out, it can be extremely tough to get your players to buy in, take you seriously, and realize that you do in fact know what you're doing. There's a reason that plenty of head coaches fail miserably at this level, and there's a reason that certain coaches are unable to get their players to buy in. Well, in 1999, during Andy Reid's first season with the Eagles, let's just say that everyone was on board with Reid. Either get the message or get out. Because during the 1999 preseason, Andy Reid established himself and sent a message loud and clear with his treatment of offensive lineman George Hegamin. And this is the story behind what might just be the first controversy of Andy Reid's legendary career, and the moment that Reid truly made his mark known in the city of brotherly love. Before I talk about the actual incident in question, we need some context to understand just who this guy, George Hegamin, is, and what his roster status was heading into the 1999 season. For the first 4 years of his career, Hegamin found himself on a different NFC East team, playing on the offensive line of the Dallas Cowboys. The good news with that, obviously, was that he won a ton of games and was part of an organization that won the Super Bowl in his 2nd year there. The bad news was that, well, he didn't exactly get a whole lot of playing time, as he was buried on the team's depth chart, although he did get to start quite a few games for the team during their rather disastrous 1997 campaign. Well, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and when Hegamin became a free agent after the 1997 season, the Eagles swooped him up. It seemed like a natural fit on paper, seeing as Philly's offensive line needed a ton of help, as their quarterbacks in 1997, whether it was Ty Detmer or Bobby Hoying or Ronnie Pete, combined to take 64 sacks, or 4 sacks per game. That was the 2nd worst total in the entire NFL, only better than the Arizona Cardinals, whose quarterbacks took an astonishingly high 78 sacks. Plus, Hegamin was sort of an Eagles fan growing up. He grew up just outside of Philly in New Jersey, and the first autograph he ever got was from the legendary Eagles linebacker Bill Bergey. Said Hegamin, "I didn't have his jersey, but I had his McDonald's cut. He had a big beard, and he looked like a tough guy, and I looked up to him. The first autograph I ever got from any athlete was from him when they practiced at Westchester. I must have been 7 years old, or even younger." During the 1998 season, Hegamin found a home with the Eagles, and actually got the opportunity to start and play significant minutes on the offensive line over the second half of the season, even starting the final 5 games of the year. As for how well he played, well, that's a different story. Never mind the fact that the Eagles had one of their worst seasons in franchise history, as the team finished 3-13 and had their worst winning percentage since 1972. Never mind the fact that the Eagles' offensive line was not any better, as the team allowed 56 sacks, which was the 4th worst total in the league. Hegamin himself did not play all that well, as he played a ton on the ground. Anytime he got into the second level or tried to execute a pull, he just fell down and could not maintain his balance whatsoever. That was a common theme watching each of Philly's final 5 games: Hegamin's inability to effectively finish blocks, and getting bulldozed at the point of attack. Still, he was the best option that the team had on the interior, and even though the Eagles fired Ray Rhodes in 1998, as in the head coach responsible for bringing Hegamin on, with Andy Reid coming into the fold in 1999, it looked like Hegamin was going to retain his starting job, regime change and all. Still, even though Hegamin entered the 1999 season as the top guy at right guard, it was by no means a given that Hegamin was going to remain the starter. Because in the 3rd round of the 1999 NFL Draft, as in the same round that Hegamin was drafted in back in 1994 by the Cowboys, the Eagles brought in Boston College guard Doug Brzezinski with pick number 64. And Andy Reid was very high on Brzezinski and his ability to potentially contribute right away on an Eagles offensive line that desperately needed it. Said Reid when the team drafted Brzezinski, "He's a solid guy. We want to bring in certain kind of people. If a game is close or a dogfight, good people find a way to dig deeper." It was going to be the veteran Hegamin against the rookie Brzezinski for the starting guard spot. And despite the fact that Hegamin had the early lead, following a shaky preseason game against the New York Jets, in which he was called for a holding penalty, and a false start penalty the week before in their game against the Baltimore Ravens, his starting job was gone. Because when the Eagles were getting ready for their next week of preseason football, Andy Reid announced that George Hegamin was no longer going to be the starter. Doug Brzezinski had won the starting job. Granted, Brzezinski was stunned by the news and had no idea that he was going to be the starter, saying on this, "I had no idea. I just went out to practice, and they just told me to go with the ones. I didn't even think I played that well in the loss to the Jets last Friday." But this was the new depth chart. Doug Brzezinski is in. George Hegamin is out. Now, when a player gets demoted and a veteran gets sent to the bench in favor of a rookie, there are a few ways that the veteran can handle it. The veteran can say something like, "I respect coach's decision, and whatever it takes to get this team to win, I'm going to do it." The veteran can be upset about it and bust his butt to make sure that he wins the starting job back. The veteran can serve as a mentor for the rookie, helping him get acclimated to the NFL and teaching him the ropes. However, George Hegamin decided not to do any of those options. Instead, he did just about the stupidest option possible, and an option that all but guarantees that you won't get your job back, and an option that gets you in the doghouse of the head coach, and an option that might get you out of professional football entirely. One reporter said that it's career suicide. Because George Hegamin, upon hearing the news that he was no longer going to be starting on the offensive line for the Eagles, walked out of camp and quit the team. Hegamin had no comment on this at first, and neither did his agent, Al Herbie. But you can bet that his teammates did, even if the offensive linemen were instructed by Andy Reid not to comment on this matter. Said defensive tackle Bill Johnson, upon hearing that Hegamin left the team, "He did what?" Another defensive player said that he didn't know whether he could trust Hegamin anymore, and whether he would be on the team. While another said, "He got demoted, but that's just competition." As for what Andy Reid said on the matter, he was here this morning, and then he left. To be very honest with you, I'm not happy that he's not here. I have to see what the rhyme or reason is. I know the word was out that he was cut. As of right now, he is not cut. Hegamin realized the error of his ways and returned to the team the next day. And with that, it was time for Andy Reid to make a tough decision. This is the decision that can set the tone for your entire future. You had a guy that just walked out on the team because he was upset that he got demoted to a backup role. How you respond to this and how you choose to address this can win the entire locker room over or can lose the entire locker room. Fining him? He's a veteran. What's that gonna do? Suspending him? It's a preseason game. For a veteran, that might actually be a blessing in disguise. Not do anything at all and pretend as though this never happened? Well, that just sends the message that the players run everything. Force him to apologize to his teammates? That can be faked. So Andy Reid knew exactly what he had to do. When the team was done practicing in the morning, Andy Reid sent the rest of the team into the locker room. That was everyone except for George Hegamin. Because Reid kept Hegamin behind after practice in the 80-degree heat and told him to go to the end zone. There, Reid set up a blocking sled, which for those who don't know, usually weighs somewhere in the ballpark of 230 pounds. And Reid had the 6'7", 331-pound lineman take the blocking sled the full length of the field, going all 100 yards from one end zone to the next. Hegamin had no help. It was just him and Reid out there on the field alone, with Reid barking orders and Hegamin, with a towel draped over his neck, having to take this massive sled all the way down the field, which was a massive struggle. It took Hegamin 5 minutes to do it, and the sled would not stay straight, twisting sideways and moving just a couple of feet every time. The end zone may have been 100 yards away, but for Hegamin, it felt like it was all the way out in California. The entire press was watching this unfold, and was watching Hegamin serve out his punishment in absolutely brutal fashion. And it was clear after that incident that Andy Reid, if he hadn't won the team over by this point, did. He delivered a message, and it worked wonders. When center Steve Everett found out about what Reid made Hegamin do, he was shocked, saying, "Is that what he had to do? Well, I guess I won't be missing any practices anytime soon." And let's just say that Hegamin got the message loud and clear, especially since Reid was offering no words of encouragement or sympathy throughout the whole ordeal, despite the fact that, according to reports, Hegamin came close to collapsing. Reid said that he didn't hold grudges, and that Hegamin was going to remain on the team. Meanwhile, Hegamin gained a ton of respect for Reid afterwards, saying, "It was a blow, but Andy runs this team, and he runs it well. I'm going to follow him to the end. I'm going to follow him until the last day. If he feels like this is going to fire me up, then hey, strike a match, baby. I'm ready to go." I think that's the first time I pushed a dummy 100 yards in all the years I played football. I understand what he's doing. I respect what he's doing. And I'm happy I'm here. I'm happy. I'm joyful I got a second chance, a third or fourth chance to keep my job, and to earn my starting job back. So let's go from there. Hegamin even admitted that despite the fact that Reid fined him, that wasn't as much of a big deal to him as pushing the sled 100 yards was. That truly set the message. And it was at that moment that it was clear that Andy Reid had control of this team, had respect of everyone, and without coaching a single regular season game yet, was fit to be running a pro football team. Unfortunately for Hegamin, he did not make it onto the final roster, as he never actually got to play a game for the Eagles under Andy Reid. Reid assured everyone that Hegamin's exit had nothing to do with this, saying, "I would have done something at that time if that was a factor. Once it was over, it was over." Hegamin found himself on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the next 2 seasons, with his career ending following the 2000 season. As for this guy right here, Andy Reid, well, I think it's safe to say that his career turned out just a bit better than Hegamin's. It's always tough for a rookie head coach, especially when dealing with a veteran, to handle that dynamic and to win the respect of everyone in the locker room. And this moment with George Hegamin and the blocking sled, which is primarily what Hegamin is known for nearly a quarter century later in Philly, was the moment where Andy Reid truly established himself as a head coach. So as a word to any Chiefs players who happen to be watching this video for some reason, if you're thinking about missing practice, if you get demoted, don't do it. Just don't do it. Because when you inevitably return to the team, Andy Reid is going to make you and every muscle and bone in your body feel the pain. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.